What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I'm your host, the dad bod god, the bald, the beard, and the fucking beautiful Piers Austin. And tonight, I'm excited. I got Billy the Kid Dib on the show. And you know, we're going to get into all kinds of conversational topics. So you're in for a fucking treat with this episode. But before we do, let's take a quick pause for that cause to thank our amazing sponsor, and that is Sleefs.com. That is SLEEFS, Sleefs.com. If you or someone you know is an athlete, you need to go and check out Sleefs. They've got armbands, compression pants, compression shorts, headbands, boots, mouth guards, and they've even got those dirty boxes that you always hear me raving about. Guys, these dirty boxes, they stay dry, they stay fresh. I'm an active guy. I work full time. I podcast my ass off. I train at the gym. I've got 3 young kids that I chase after. I've got a ball-busting wife. Just kidding, darling. I love you very much. But guys, these are the most comfortable boxes that I own. So guys, go and check them out. And they've got funky designs on the front to keep that special person in your life giggling when the belt buckle comes undone at the end of the show. So at the end of the night, I should say. So go and check them out. Use that promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Guys, wherever you are finding us, I appreciate it. I really do. Do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, like, share, comment, all that good shit. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please give us a 5-star review, baby. It helps us bring more amazing conversations to more amazing people like yourself, you, the person listening to this podcast. So please do us a favor, go and get it done. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone, it's time to get into my conversation with Billy the Kid Dib. Let's do it, yeah. And we're live with Billy the Kid Dib. Billy, thanks for joining the show, brother.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Man, I'm excited to have you on, man. And you know what, dude? It's interesting. Like when I was doing a little bit of research here, I've lived in the Shire for about 10 years, right? And
Nice.
I posted to advertise this on my Instagram and my Facebook, and that's got my personal and professional, everyone who is on those, right? And I had people commenting going, bro, Billy grew up around the corner from where you live, cuz. Billy's Engadine boy. So, man, this is pretty cool to have you on, man. It's
true, man. I grew up in Engadine, man. So I'm an Engadine boy through and through, you know.
Yeah, exactly, man, exactly. But dude, you know, getting into it, man, you know, I find like, you know, your story, the more I read about you, the more I was like going in depth about your history, man. You know what? I was just really intrigued, like you know, your boxing journey, your personal journey, you know, your journey through life. Essentially, you know, you've gone through so much. But dude, starting off, man, like growing up in Engadine, which I always like, I found like one of the things like when I moved out here was, man, there is a lot of white Australians out here, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like this Shire is very Australian. You know, as a Middle Eastern boy growing up, you know, in the Shire, how did you find, you know, life growing up, you know, being from a different culture? Because your parents like immigrated to Australia, correct?
That's correct, man. So it was a little bit hard, to be honest with you. So my father obviously came to Australia in the 70s, and then he flew my mother over in the mid 80s. So, you know, we started our life, and my father decided to purchase a store in Engadine. And so, you know, once he purchased his store in Engadine, he basically just, you know, set up our life out there. And, it was a big shock to the system, to be moving into Engadine, to be a young kid who was brown skin, black hair, brown eyes. You know what I mean? It was like people fear what's different, and me and my brothers and my sister, we look different. So people sort of, you know, I'm not sure what degree they feared us, but they did fear us. You know what I mean? Like we were different. When people fear what's different.
Yeah, exactly, man. And it's interesting, bro. Like I grew up, in Ryde, and when I grew up, man, the school I went to was kind of like race wars happening in school, right? And my best mate
Uh,
growing up was Middle Eastern. He's Armenian. So we remember being like 13, going into high school, and people going, "Hey, man, you got to decide: are you with the Aussies or you with these?" And like the same thing, we're like, "Bro, we're just boys, man." And like we just kept that through life. He's now the godfather of my children, best man
yeah,
of my wife.
wow,
You know what I mean? Like it's just
that's
weird how
amazing,
like
bro.
how that generation, I think it was probably more of a timing thing as well. Like probably this generation isn't experiencing that sort of like just I think
Yeah, I mean,
social
look,
awkwardness.
times have changed, man. Times have changed. You know what I mean? And you know, they picked on me when I started there. Then they became my friends. Then they became my fans. You know what I mean? So like, at the end of the day, man, people evolve and people, you know, like I said, bro, I don't, hold anything against anybody. At the end of the day, the truth is that we were a little bit different. You know what I mean? We were
Yeah.
coming from an Arabic background. We were Muslims. People didn't even know what a Muslim was back then, man. They were like confused. What's a Muslim? You know what I mean? Well, look, I'm not Christian and I'm not Jewish, but I'm Muslim. You know what I mean? So like, it's a little bit confusing to people. So it's okay. I mean, you just roll with the punches, man. And my dad used to tell us all the time, look, guys, we're gonna kill them with kindness. We're just gonna be nice to them, and eventually one day they're gonna come around. And they did, man. They came around. My dad's a very wise man, and exactly what he said happened. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty glad that we maintained our friendships and our relationships with these people. They've been great people to us.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's a good way of handling situations in life because it's like, I mean, people can't get angry at you consistently if you're just nice and kill them with kindness, right?
Ah, definitely, man. That's the way to be, brother. Like, I would come home, after school with a black eye, ripped t-shirts, you know what I mean? Like dirt all over my clothes because somebody pushed me on the ground. I dealt with that for a long time, man. No, but the greatest thing that happened to me, man, is that, that is what drove me to my destiny, man, because boxing became my destiny. If it wasn't for school and for the environment that I was in, I may have never found boxing, you know what I mean? Because boxing was one of those things that I found by accident due to the people at school bullying me. You know what I mean? It was like something that just fell into my hands.
So is that why you got into boxing? Is because you were getting bullied and you wanted to defend yourself, or like
Look,
what was
that,
the?
to be quite honest with you, man, getting bullied in boxing had nothing to do with the fact. The truth is that my dad was like, listen, I want to put you guys in some after school sports. And you guys are gonna make friends with these kids outside of school, and I think that's gonna break down the barriers between you and these kids. And so, me and my brother Nasser, we were obsessed with basketball as kids, man. We wanted to be basketball stars. You know what I mean? When I was a kid, I used to write on paper that I want to be an NBA star one day. And so, my dad put us at the Sutherland PCYC to play basketball. And it was only through like basketball, and then we played a little bit of rugby league, football. And it was at the footy field one day that so you play basketball and footy was in different seasons of the year. So I did
Yeah.
the basketball. Then the next season I did football, and then one day at the footy field, the trainer pulled out some mitts and some pads and everything like that. And he was like, "Listen, today we're gonna do a box size session." And me growing up in a household with five brothers and one sister, you know what the biggest franchise in our home was a freaking Rocky. You know what I mean? All we did was watch
Yeah.
Rocky movies. So as a kid, we just beat the shit out of each other. Then mom would come up and beat us up. You know what I mean? So like, this guy gets punched in the eye. This guy starts crying. Then mom comes in and gives this guy's a slap. You know what I mean? That's how it was. So then when he said we're gonna do some box exercise, I hit the pads like bang bang. He's like, "Wow, have you boxed before?" And I was like, "No, but I watched a lot of Rocky movies." And he's like, "All right, that sort of tells the story." He goes, "But listen, I think you're onto something. I think you should tell your dad to take you to the Sutherland PCYC to do some boxing." He goes, "I don't know about your footy career, but you might have found something with boxing." And you know what? I told my dad, I said, "Dad, listen, man, here's the thing, right? So the trainer reckons that if I want to be the next Mal Meninga, I need to go to the boxing gym and do some box exercise." And so,
Smart.
my dad was like, "All right, I'll take you down to the gym." And I took me down to the gym. He gave me $1 coin because that's what it cost back in the days to go into the gym was just $1 coin, any donation. and I walked in the gym. I knocked on the door with my elbow, and the trainer opened the door and he said, "Come in." And he says, "Why you got your gloves on?" I said, "I'm here to box." And he goes, "What about skipping? Do you know anything about boxing, kid?" And I was like, "Yeah, nah, I just want to fight." He's like, "Well, listen, give me that dollar coin." He put it in the tin and he was like, "Let's go get a skipping rope." You know what I mean? That was the start of something special. You know what I mean? I walked into that gym and I never looked back again. That was my life.
How did you find like first going into a boxing gym, you know, being a young kid? Because like I feel like boxing, I feel like a lot of people and probably like kids more than anything, they see a lot of like the showmanship on the grand stage. They see the finished product. They don't see exactly
The
what
hard
it
work.
goes into to go into boxing. Were you honestly thinking you were just going to go in there, hop in the ring, and start sparring guys straight off?
Well, look, man, when I walked into the gym, the first day that I ever walked into the gym, there was a there was a kid by the name of Alex Bookluck and another kid by the name of Adam. They were in the ring sparring, and I was like, man, this is amazing. Two guys are beating the shit out of each other, and no one's stopping it. This is what I got to do. This is me. This has
Yeah.
got me written all over it. You know what I mean? So I was like, I got to do this. So then I just felt like I was home. You know what I mean? I felt like, wow, this is exactly what I want to do. So my obsession with boxing was like an instant connection. You know what I mean? Like it was love at first sight. I walked into that gym and I never looked back. You know what I mean? So like, and the thing about me is that I was 12 years of age at that time, and I knew right then and there that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And now
That's
I'm 37 and I'm still going, and I'm like, it's such an addictive sport, man. I love it so much, and it's given me so much, and it's given me so much confidence and happiness and drive and all these amazing things in my life. You know what I mean? And all these people around me who I've seen who have been so joyous from the success that I've had. So it's like, to me, it's like unbelievable, man. I'm just loving life right now.
man, and you know what? The Shire is like so rich with so much boxing like knowledge around here. You know what I mean? Like there's so many great boxers that are coming out of here. You know, like Dave Birchall, for example. I'm not sure if you know Birchall, but he's
I
been
know
around.
David Birchie. I know Birchie for a long time, man. He's like a he's not far off a shy guy as well, man. He's a shy
Yeah,
guy too.
yeah, he actually coached me for a while. He was
Wow, there
just
you
like
go.
one of the sorry?
That's crazy, man. Because I know Birchie really, really well. I knew Birchie since I was in the amateur days.
Yeah, man. Like I remember going and the first time I met him, he was like sparring two guys at once. And like I was spinning out because I had history and background in boxing and stuff. And he's got his hands down here and he's just doing these ones. And he looked like he wasn't even looking at him. And like these guys didn't even land a punch. And he's just like jab,
Yeah,
hook.
man.
And I
Birchie
was
was
just like,
Birchie was in Birchie's time, man. He was good, and his dad Ray was a really, really prominent figure in my amateur career. You know what I mean? His dad was a one of the referees, and like he was. You'd always see Ray around all the time. You know what I mean? So Birchie played a like his dad definitely played a role in my amateur career. You know what I mean? Like they always around. You always saw him at the tournaments and stuff like that. So I'm pretty fond of them people, man.
yeah, man, great dude. But who was your first trainer? Like you mentioned, like you went in there, knocked on the door with your elbow, walked in there. But do you remember who the coach was? Like, and did
Definitely,
they
man. I'll never forget it, man, because he's still a good friend of mine till today. The greatest thing about boxing, man, is that you meet these people and you make these great connections with people, and the relationship that I've had with my past trainers has been amazing. And so Rusty Penton was the first trainer that was there. So I was Rusty and another gentleman by the name of Eddie. And yeah, man, that was like the 5 o'clock session. So I'd get there at like 5 o'clock or 4:30, and then after 4:30 or 5 o'clock, there was another session where there was another guy called Skip. The trainer in the gym, his name was Skip. You know what I mean? So like, I made some definitely amazing friendships and relationships through the gym at Sutherland PCYC. But then, just prior to turning 14, prior to turning 14, I connected with another trainer who basically became like a father figure and somebody that guided me through life and guided me to 113 amateur fights and 17 professional fights without a loss. And that was my trainer, Harry Hamoud. And, he and I have remained till today, father and son. Like he's just an amazing man and I love him so much. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for him.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. 113 amateur fights, bro. Look,
Yeah.
I gotta ask, man. Like, once you start training at the boxing gym and you go in there and like the amateur fights start coming in, because you can sort of start fighting amateurs at really like a teenager or younger, really. Like
Yeah.
what was the take? Like, did you like hide that shit from your parents for a while, or were you like pretty
Nah, man,
upfront?
nah. You know what? The truth is that like 4 weeks after walking into the Sutherland PCYC, I was so amped. I was so amped. I was telling the trainer, I said, listen, there's a fight night coming up in a couple of weeks. Put me in, man. Put me in. It was like 4 weeks after being in the gym, there was a fight night at the Sutherland PCYC. And the trainer's like, you're not ready. And I'm like, look, don't worry about being ready and not ready. Just let me worry about that. You just worry about putting me on the show. You know what I mean? And he's like, oh, look, I don't know. And I said, listen, do you know what my full name is? And he goes, no. And I said, my name is Bilal Muhammad Ali Dib. And he goes, come on, don't give me that. And I said, listen, you're not listening to me. My father's name is Muhammad Ali. My middle name is Muhammad Ali. I'm telling you, I'm destined for this. Put me in the ring. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyway, he's like, show me your birth certificate. So I brought my birth certificate and it says Bilal Muhammad Ali Dib. And he's like, oh my God, you are really destined for this, right? And I say, put me in an exhibition. And believe it or not, my first exhibition was against a kid who was really talented at the time and did reasonably well as a professional. His name was Tommy Brown. And at the time, Tommy Brown had around 80 amateur fights. And I'd never been in the ring before in a fight. You know
Jesus.
what? And I chased this kid, Tommy Brown, around the ring and he made me look like a fool, but I didn't care. I was in there just having fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, 7 fights later, and at the time my record was 6 wins and 1 loss. My trainer, Harry, decided to put me in a competitive fight, in a real fight against Tommy, right? In a real fight. And everyone was telling my trainer, Harry, you're crazy. You know, you're going to get the kid killed. He's only a young boy. And the truth is, right, at the time, Tommy was 15 years old and I was 13. And at the time, to box in Sydney, you needed to be 14. But I had changed my birth certificate to say that I was 14 years of age. So really, I was the 13-year-old chasing this 15-year-old around the ring, Tommy Brown. And you know what? He beat me by 1 point. He beat me on a split decision.
That's
You know, and,
close.
so, and I knew right then and there at that moment that I was destined for greatness in boxing because I had no fear, man. I was this young bull terrier, you know what I mean? I didn't care whether you were big, small, fat, ugly, whatever you were, man. I was in there to kill you, you know what I mean? I just wanted to win and I was willing to do whatever it took to win, you know? And so, like, right then after that, man, everything just started to flourish, you know what I mean? 113 fights later, 98 wins, represented Australia all over the world. Was selected to live at the Australian Institute of Sport. I fought in Hungary at the World Cadet Championships. I fought in Cuba at the World Junior Championships. I fought in Thailand at the World Senior Championships. I was the youngest fighter in the whole tournament. I was 17 years of age, youngest fighter at the whole tournament, and I made it to the quarterfinals, man. I made it the furthest out of the whole Australian team, and I was only the baby of the team.
Like,
So,
how old were the people you were fighting?
they were in their like mid 20s, 25, 26, 27. Daniel Gill was there.
Yeah.
Jamie Pittman was there. We had a pretty strong team, but I was the one who made it the furthest. And that's really really proved to me as a kid that, I'm definitely destined for greatness. And like my, my dream was to represent Australia at the Olympic Games, at the 2004 Olympic Games. Before winning a world title or anything like that was my major dream. I wanted to go to the Olympic Games and wear the green and gold. That was my obsession. The Olympic Games, the 2004 Olympic Games was my absolute obsession. And unfortunately, just due to my negligence and stupidity, I decided to get on a motorbike and, I fell off the bike, man, and I caused myself some serious damage. And then after that, trying to compete at the trials in the devastating, form that I was in, because I was in like really bad shape, man. I really tore up the skin on my arms, my legs, and here I was fighting with like blood dripping out of my arms and whatever. And so like, and unfortunately I didn't make the team, I mean, I was like, at the time I was like rated number 8 in the world. And to miss out on the Olympic Games was completely devastating, man. I was so devastated, I cried. And you know what the craziest thing is, man, is that Lebanon came to the rescue after it. They came to the rescue, and they were like, listen, we will let you try out through the Pan American or Pan African Games. If you qualify, you can represent Lebanon at the Olympic Games. I was like, man, I'm all in. I'm all in. And my dad was like, no, you're not going anywhere, mate. You're not going anywhere. You're not representing Lebanon. You're not representing anybody. You're done. Your Olympic dream is vanished unless you're going to wait another 4 years. He goes, it was your fault that you got on the bike. He goes, but my son's not going to represent Lebanon. Australia's giving us everything, and you're going to stay put, and you're going to represent your home country. Lebanon gave you nothing. Australia gave you everything, so you're not going over there. And I was like, man, Dad, this is my dream. He's like, if that was your dream, you shouldn't have got on that motorbike. That's your fault. Now cop it. You know what I mean? I was like, oh man, my dad was a hard man, brother. My dad's still
Yeah.
around today, man. He's a really wise man, but he made that decision. It's probably one of the best decisions. And I said, Dad, why can't I go? And he said, listen, let me give you a scenario. You go to the Olympic Games to represent Lebanon, and then you face Australia in the first round and you win. What then? How do you come back to Australia? What are you going to be like? What do you think Australia's going to accept you back into the country? You've just knocked off their guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I go, he goes, I'm not letting that happen. It ain't happening on my watch. And I'm like, oh man, Dad, you're a hard man, brother. He's like, well,
It
listen.
sounds like it.
He said to me, my house, my rules. You don't like it? Leave.
Yeah.
I said,
My old man said the same comments to me as a kid growing up.
and then he said, listen, if you want to become champion, if you still want to chase your boxing dream, just turn professional. Be done with it. I was like, all right, cool.
And is that what led you to go on and become a pro?
Nah, man. You know what? When I turned pro, it's the craziest thing, man. Because growing up as a young boy, my childhood hero and my obsession in boxing was a guy by the name of Prince Nassim Hamed. He was like my hero, man. He meant everything to me. And then one day, my sister came home with a pamphlet that said that Prince Nassim Hamed would be a guest speaker at the local mosque in Lakemba. I was the first person there, man. Anyway, long story short, uh, you know, Nas was a guest speaker there, but he wasn't a guest speaker in real life. He was a guest speaker via conference call or whatever it was. You couldn't even see him back in the day. Back in the day, you used to see whenever they spoke, you'd see the lines jumping. You know what I mean? It wasn't no video stuff, and so the person who brung Nas out was the person who rung Nas was a man by the name of Khalid Yassin, and he's a famous speaker, you could say, or a sheikh. And after the talk finished, I approached him and just said, look, man, Prince seems my childhood hero, and I'd love if you could call him back. And he pretty much said, look, I can't call him back, but long story short, if you can get a biography to me and like a couple of your fights on video, I'll be sure to give it to him. And I thought, man, this was a long shot, but I've tried everything. I'd written to Nas over 300 times during my 5 or 6 years as an amateur. So I started boxing at 13 and I turned pro at 18. So during that time, I'd written to Nas a good 300 times on his fan page, and he never responded. Never even sent out a glove, never sent out a gift, nothing, which is crazy, because back in the days, if you spoke to somebody on their fan page, they'd send you out a hat or a T-shirt or a signed photo or something. He never did that for me, and so when the Sheikh said he'd give it to him, I thought this is a long shot, but I've tried everything. Well, then a week later, Prince Nassim Hamed called me, and he's like, hello? And I'm like, hello? And he's like, is that Bilal? And I was like, yeah, it's Bilal. And he's like, this Prince Nassim. And I was like, no way, man. Couldn't believe it, man. I was like, I really started to tear up, And everyone's like, just talk to him. My siblings and everyone's like standing around me, just talk to him. And then I was like, all right, man. And he's like, listen, when are you going to come out and see me? I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, I'm serious. I said, well, I'm on school holidays right now. I can come tomorrow. And he's like, no, man, be serious. And I'm like, I'm telling you the truth. I'm on school holidays and my dad would let me come, So he's like, let me speak to your dad. And so he spoke to my dad, and you know what? He told my dad, can I fly him out? And my dad was like, yeah, absolutely. And he's like, I'll cover all the costs and everything. My dad's like, no, we'll fix it up. And he's like, no, please let me just cover the cost and everything. So he paid for a business class flight for me to fly from Australia to the UK. He basically let me stay in his home. He kept me on ice for 3 days. When I arrived into England, he kept me on ice for 3 days. He kept me waiting for 3 days. So I thought it was a hoax, but it was just that he was busy and he couldn't come see me because he was busy at the World Snooker Championship supporting one of his friends. And so once he sort of got done with that, he come through and picked me up, and it was just like the most amazing dream come true, man. And once once he basically uh once I had to leave, man, I was in tears because I was like, I couldn't believe that I was leaving the UK and gonna be away from him. I mean, like I was just really looking forward to spending time with him, and and then when my time was basically up and I had to go back to Australia, I was devastated, man.
How much time did you have over there with him?
I spent 3 weeks with him, and then during that time when I was there for 3 weeks, he basically advised me to turn professional and get get on the horse and just roll on with the professional career. And he said that he'd guide me and look after me throughout my career, and that's exactly what he did for the first part of my career. For the first I would say from 2004 to about 2000 and say 15 or 16, man, he was like right by my side throughout my whole career. He helped me, he guided me, he advised me, he was always there, man. He was always a phone call away, and you know after 5 professional fights, I flew back to England, so I'd always go back and get more knowledge from him, and I just felt like I was so far ahead in regards to you know being ahead of the game, just because I had people like Prince Nassim and that in my life. And then 2006 rolls around, and then Jeff Fennick sort of becomes a part of my life, and he comes to my 26th, also my 21st birthday, and then he invites me over to America to meet with Mike Tyson. I'm 21. I meet with Mike Tyson. Shortly after that, I meet Oscar De La Hoya, Shane Mosley, Bernard Hopkins. And, that's when my life with Golden Boy Promotion takes off. And like that's just that's in a place, like in a realm in my mind, man. It's like the most amazing feeling to be the first fighter from an international country to be signed to a Golden Boy Promotions, which was an American company at the time. It was something special, man. So I was the first international fighter that they ever signed up, which is like, wow, man, it's just an absolute dream come true. And right after me, they started working with Michael Katsidis. So, like it was just awesome, man. Absolutely awesome.
So let's take it back a bit. Like, you got flown over to meet Mike Tyson. Now, like,
yeah,
Mike Tyson is probably like, in the world of boxing, like, there's two names that are most iconic in the world of boxing: Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson. Like,
yeah.
when you go to meet Mike Tyson at 21 years of age, are you shitting yourself, or are you like 21 years old, cocky, confident, like, hey man, I'm Billy the Kid,
Nah,
let's do this?
man, I was so confident, but you know what? When I met Mike Tyson, man, he shot me down like really bad, man. It was like he sort of like nearly embarrassed me, because I was like super excited to meet him, and he was like had no time for me. He didn't really care who I was and what I was doing. And anyway, but he came around, man. And once he came around, and once I sort of gained his trust, it was amazing, man. But a funny story that I can tell you, man, is that one time I was in the ring sparring, and like, so Mike Tyson was training at a place called it was called the Venetian Hotel, right?
Yeah.
And they had a ring in the center of the hotel, and like thousands of people would come out and watch him train, come out and watch him hit the pads with Jeff, right? And so one day he decided that he was running a little bit late, he's not coming down, and so then Jeff was like, look, we got to entertain the crowd, so I've invited a few people to come do some sparring with you. And so I was sparring, man, and I was moving around, got my hands down, doing the whole Prince of Scene thing, whatever. Next thing you know, I hear this guy like from far away says, "Put your hands up, Billy. You ain't Prince of the Theme, you motherfucker." And I was like, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" This guy, man. And then he come up and he's like, "Yo, man, you ain't no Prince of the Theme, man. Put your hands up, man. We gonna get knocked out doing shit like that, man." I'm like, "Oh, so, Mike, I'm just like, I'm surprised you're even talking to me, man." And then we just kicked it off right after that, man. He was like funny, you know what I mean? And he was always like, every everywhere I went, he was like calling me motherfucker. He's like, "What's up, motherfucker? What's up, motherfucker?" And I'm like, "Who's this guy, man?" I said, "Mike, my name's Billy, not motherfucker." "No, man, your name motherfucker, man." You know? And then we had the best time. I had the best time, you know? But it was like crazy things happened to me when I was in America, man. Like crazy things, you know what I mean? Like, I remember going to America when I was 21, man. I was going through a really bad breakup. So I was I was a little bit hurt because I was going through my, like, met my first love when I was 17, 21. We broke up. She decided to pull the pin on me. And like, I'm like, So I was devastated, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I went over there, but things started to really fall into place for me, man. And you know what? It's like it's so crazy how life brings you to certain things, man. And so my meeting with Prince Asim when I was 18 was crazy because when I went to Vegas with Mike when I was 21, Nas was incarcerated in jail for a car accident. I don't know if you know that, but he was involved in a car accident where he hit and run and basically left the person there really injured. So he was incarcerated for 6 months. So during that time, I wasn't able to speak to him. I had no phone access to him. It was pretty much impossible to speak with him. I never spoke. I never did speak with him. The only time I got to basically send messages was through his brothers, and he'd send messages back. Telling them, tell Billy that I'm gonna be out and I'm gonna looking after him when he gets out, whatever. So during my time in America, I had a guy that was there. His name was Matty, and Matty was like, listen, um, I just went to a shoe store in Fashion Show Mall, and there's a guy in there. He reckons he knows Prince Asim. He's got photos up there with Prince Asim and stuff. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, you should go over and see him, man. It's so crazy because that same day, Nas ended up getting out of jail. And the first thing he did was ring me. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, man, I'm in fucking Vegas with Mike Tyson. He's like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, man. He's like, that's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just out here training, doing some work with Mike and, Jeff Fennick and stuff. And so, you know, when the next day, when I decided to go to Fashion Show Mall to see this guy, his name was Joe Meir. He was like, oh, I'm like, oh, how you doing, man? He's like, good. I'm like, Prince Hassan? He's like, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. He's like, yeah, but he's in jail right now. I'm like, nah, man, he got out yesterday. He's like, how do you know? And I'm like, because I'm really cool with him, man. I was actually on the phone with him. I said, you know what? Call him right now. So this guy Joe picks up the phone and rings Nas, and he's like, hey Nas, how you doing? He's like, yeah, good, man. He's like, listen, I got a kid by the name of Billy Dib here in the shop, and he says that he knows you. Like Nas, like, who's Billy Dib?
No,
And
solve
then
it.
and I was like, tell him Billy the Kid. And when he said to Nas, Billy the Kid, oh, you mean Billy the Kid? Of course. Put him on the phone right now. And then I get on the phone, like Nas is like, listen, Bilal, take whatever you want from the store, man. Don't worry, I'll look after it. I'm like, I don't need anything. I'm good. I just came to meet this guy because apparently he reckons he knows you. And he's like, yeah, he's a good guy, man. Definitely amazing guy and whatever. So after we got off the phone with Nas, so this guy, Joe Me, says to me, so what's your record? I'm like, I'm 13-0, man. He's like, you signed to anybody? I said, nah, but I'm out here trying to get signed up.
Yeah.
And he's like, man, I know Shane Mosley and Oscar the Lawyer and Bernard Hopkins. I'm really close with them. I'm like, man, who don't you know, bro? He's like, man, I hook them up with sneakers and kicks all the time, and they come through here all the time. So he's like, I was like, well, I was at the fight the other night and I gave a DVD to Eric Gomez, and he reckons he's gonna give it to Oscar, but I don't know whether he's gonna really do that or not. And he's like, well, I know Shane really well, man. So I can send one to Shane if you want. So I was like, bro, absolutely, man. Can you come past my hotel tonight and I'll give you a disc? And he goes, yeah. So he came past that evening, picked up a disc, put it in a package and sent it over to Shane. You know what I mean? Well, 2 days later, he rings me up and he's like, look, man, I've just been on the phone with Shane, and Shane's really impressed with the footage you sent him. And he's like, are you interested to come out to Pomona, California to meet him? And I'm like, hell yeah, man. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
was like, let me ring my trainer back home and work out what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, if he can come. So I rang my trainer. I'm like, look, man, Harry, I've just sent a disc to Shane Mosley. And Shane Mosley's like, come to the gym and let me check you out. So he's like, he's invited me to come out in like 3 days. I know it's a bit short notice, but can you get on a flight and come to Vegas? And he's like, yeah, yeah, for sure. So the next day, Harry gets on a plane. He arrives into Vegas. The next day, we fly out. We actually take a car ride from Vegas to Laverne in California. Laverne's another area. It's like a really plush area in LA where Shane Mosley was living in like a really beautiful home. You know what I mean? And then Shane was like, when I got to his home, he's like, listen, you want to go to the gym? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it, man. Let's go. I was amped. I was pumped. I was like, shit, I've been in the ring with Prince Asim and all that. I'm gonna show Shane what I got. I think I'm just going out there to do pads. I'm gonna go hit the
Yeah.
bag, do pads. He wants to see me shadowbox, see what I'm all about, right?
Yeah.
So here we are. We get to this gym in Pomona, California. There's all these mad posters of Shane Mosley all over the gym. It's his like childhood gym, you know what I mean? And I'm like, start wrapping my hands up. I look to my right and here's Shane taking his top off and he starts wrapping his hands up too. And I'm like, hey
Oh no.
Shane, what are you doing? And he's like, getting ready. And I'm like, for what? And he's like, we're gonna spar, right? And I'm like, hold on a second. You want me to spar you? And at the time, I'm like a featherweight, you know what I mean? And he's a
Yeah.
welterweight. He's like an absolute gun. Matter of fact, he's just knocked out Fernando Vargas in the rematch, right? So I'm
Yeah.
coming, I'm getting in the ring with Shane Mosley, who's just knocked out Fernando Vargas in this rematch. And I'm like, shit, man, this guy's a junior middleweight. I'm a featherweight. And then I'm like, in 2001, I watched him destroy Oscar De La Hoya. I'm like, and I used to say to my trainer, I'm like, you reckon I could ever be as fast as Sugar Shane Mosley? He's like, yeah, no doubt. Why not? You got to believe in yourself, right? It all starts
Yeah.
with the vision, man. Believe yourself, believe, succeed. You know what I'm saying? This is just how it is, right? So, and then I get in the ring with Shane, and like Shane starts like fainting and doing all these things, and like he's got me on edge, man. I'm like, oh man, I'm sweating because I'm on edge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then after one round, my trainer was like, look, man, if you brought me all the way from Australia to do that, shit, I shouldn't have come, man, because you're embarrassing yourself right now. You know, he ain't gonna sign you on that. He's just gonna think you look good against these guys that you're fighting. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is your chance to show him that you're world class. He goes, you've been in with Prince Nassim Hamed. What are you even worried about him? Nas was a bigger star than he was. And I was like, you know what? You're right, man. So I just went out, no respect, started banging Shane with whatever I could hit him with. I didn't care. And obviously, he wasn't banging back to his full capacity, but he was giving it back. He was trying to keep me honest. Well, so then after 3 rounds, he takes his gloves off, and I'm like, just standing, and he's like, listen, that's it, take your gloves off, man. I'm like, all right. And he's like, so look, man, what's the plans over the next couple of years? And I'm like, shit, I don't know about you, man, but I'm chasing what you have, man. I'm gonna become world champion. He goes, I got no doubt about it. And I was like, he's like, how would you like to be signed to Golden Boy Promotions? And I'm like, what? And he's like, how would you like to be signed to Golden Boy Promotions? And I'm like, man, that would be a dream come true, Shane. He's like, he goes, well, man, welcome to the team. And I'm like, just like that? He's like, just like that. We'll get the contracts drawn up and everything and everything. And I'm like, really? Just like that? He's like, just like that. Let's take some photos. Let's do some socials and whatever. Then he rang Oscar De La Hoya, and he goes to Oscar, listen, Oscar, I've got this kid in the gym right now. His name's Billy Dib. This kid fights a lot like Prince Nassim Hamed. He comes from angles. He's fast. He's got elusiveness. He's hard to hit. And then Oscar says to him, it's funny you should say that because I got a disc of a kid that I watched on a plane the other day that sort of describes the same guy you're talking about. And I was like, tell him I was the one that gave him the disc. And then he was like, and then Oscar's like, yeah, we got to sign him up. We got to sign him up. You know what I mean? So here you are, this
Wow.
kid who's like 21 years of age, 13-0, been fighting in all these obscure venues in, in Sydney and like, just like nothing top tier, you know what I mean? Just like State Sports Center, you know what I mean? Like Panthers, Blacktown Panthers and all that stuff, the Panthers Club and all that. So it's all obscurity, you know what I mean? It's nothing
Yeah.
big. So then what happens, man, is that they sign me up and my first fight is on the undercard of Winky Wright versus I Corte in a massive fight in Florida. And the craziest thing is I'll never forget this, man, being 21 years of age. And I remember as we were walking out to the venue and I was fighting this guy called Philip Payne. And Philip Payne was like a journeyman American who had fought everybody from Junior Jones, Kevin Kelly, everyone. So this was like
Yeah.
a real step up test for me, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And it was an 8-round fight. And I remember as I was walking out to the venue, there was thousands and thousands and thousands of people there, man. Like nothing I'd ever seen before, right? And my brother Muhammad, he said, stop. Everyone just stop for a minute. Stop right in your tracks. So everyone stopped and I was like, he's like, I just want you to soak this in for 1 minute. He goes, this is your dream, man. You're living out your dream right now. He goes, this is the beginning of your dream. He goes, you envision this. You fathom this every day of your life and you finally have arrived, man. It's like, just enjoy the moment, bro. So I walked into the ring with a smile. I was so happy, man. Oscar De La Hoya, Shane Mosley, Bernard Hopkins, Richard Schaefer, Eric Gomez, all sitting ringside about to watch me do what I do best against this guy, Philip Payne. And I'll tell you something, man. I battered this guy from pillar to post for 8 rounds. Several times during the fight, Bernard Hopkins and Oscar De La Hoya, even I dropped the guy. Bernard Hopkins and Oscar stand up and like, Stop the fight, ref. Stop. You're crazy. Stop the fight. I battered this guy, man. He looked like a monster by the time I was done with him. You know what I mean? He had cuts and bruises and everything. I destroyed it. I basically made my, when you make that grand entrance into American boxing, I made that grand entrance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Showed the flamboyance. I showed the speed. I showed everything. That all the stuff that I had been working on with Nas for all these years, I showed it. And I was like, I impressed him so much. You know what I mean? And so then the next thing was like, every fight that I appeared on was just a big fight, big fight, big fight, big fight. Nothing small. I went from the undercard of I Corte versus Winky Wright to Shane Mosley versus Colazo to Oscar De La Hoya versus Floyd Mayweather to Shane Mosley versus Miguel Cotto to Kitsidis versus Casamayor, and then I fought for the IBO world title in Australia on the undercard of Anthony Mundine versus Crazy Kim when I won the IBO super featherweight world title. And so, I wanted to try to be, make history. I wanted to try to become one of the youngest Australians to ever win a world title. And, so at 23 years of age, I flew to America on very short notice and faced Stephen Loebno for the WBO featherweight championship. And this was really special to me because it was my opportunity to win the same world title that Nassim Hamed had won against Steve Johnson all those years ago. And Nas went on to make 15 title defenses. So unfortunately, it didn't go the way that it was planned, and I lost a very close decision, 115, 113, 114, 112. It was like a really, really close decision, you know what I mean? And so, unfortunately, I suffered my first loss, but then I got back on the horse, man, and I was like, you know what, it's time to rebuild, and, I ain't stopping at no IBO world title. I need to become a legitimate champion in that featherweight. I need to do it at featherweight because I needed to follow in the footsteps of Nas. And so, you know what? I went on a bit of a soul searching journey after the loss, traveled to Mecca, made supplication and prayer, asked God for guidance and, to put me in touch with somebody who could guide me to a world title. And just so happened to be that Billy Hussein would be that man. You know what I mean? I linked up with Billy Hussein. He had a few rules that he put in place. He was pretty much said, we need to have 10 fights before we even talk about a world title fight. I need to rebuild you from the ground up. You know what I mean? That's exactly what he did. We had 9 fights, 9 wins, 8 knockouts along the way. And then in the 10th fight, I was the number 1 contender and I was on the verge of fighting Mikey Garcia. And, I'm not sure if a lot of these listeners know who Mikey Garcia is, but Mikey Garcia is today considered one of the best Mexican American fighters. He won 4 world championships in 4 different divisions. You know what I mean? He's an amazing fighter. His only real legitimate loss comes to Errol Spence, which he jumped up to try to win the 5th world title. And, obviously he didn't win a decision. He got beat pretty comprehensively. And, and so fight, for me, like to be fighting Mikey Garcia at that time was like crazy, you know what I mean? But Mikey decided to go in another direction. And so then I ended up fighting a kid by the name of Jorge La Sierva, and I my dream came true, man, and I became the IBF featherweight world champion. And what made that really special, man, because winning the world title was special, but what made it even more special was the fact that in 1997, Prince Nassim Hamed had knocked out Tom Boom Boom Johnson to win the IBF featherweight world title. And it's so crazy because when I went Nas, he went in the papers telling the newspapers and everything that I was going to be the second coming and that I would be champion of the world one day. And I would follow in his footsteps and win some of the titles that he did. But who would have ever imagined that I would end up being a featherweight? And so, you know what's crazy, man? History repeated itself. And, I ended up winning the IBF world title in 2011. And I went on to make several title defenses, you know what I mean? And, like, just an absolute dream come true, man. And, like, the greatest thing is that when I was 12 years of age, if I could have jumped out and said to the 26-year-old at the time that, hey, by the time you're 26, you'll be 2-time world champion, I would have said, no, I don't believe it. You know what I mean? So, like,
easy to think and see what you've achieved, like, throughout that. And I just want to take it back a second because, like, you said, like, going into that first fight with Golden Boy Promotions, thousands of people in attendance, a stage that you hadn't performed on as yet, and your brother sort of saying, hey, let's slow it down, soak this all in. what was your mindset going from fighting in front of such a large crowd? Like, was there any nerves? Was there anything, or was it just like you were like, "Hey, man, I fucking belong here. Let's go."
Nah, man, listen, brother. I'm a born entertainer. I'm a born entertainer. Like, man, I'll tell you now, from when I was a kid, man, I love to entertain my relatives, my mom, my dad, my siblings. I was always doing funny shit, just trying to entertain people. That was just me.
Yeah,
Obviously, of course, I was nervous, but I took it like, man, this is my stage. This is my venue. This is my arena. This is my time to shine. I'm still in the show tonight.
yeah,
Fuck Winky Wright and fuck Ike Corte. Billy Dibs in the house. You know what I mean? That's my mentality, man. My mentality was like, I want to be the best. And I'm not going to stop at anything until I get there. You know what I mean? Look, whether or not I reach my full potential, I don't know. Because, so many things went wrong in my career, yet so many things went right. And so, I'm just, the one thing that I can tell you, man, is that I'm just so grateful to God, man. I'm a God fearing man, and I'm grateful to God for the good and the bad because, you know, if it was just bad, I'd be a little bit, sad about it. But God gave me good too, man. You know what I mean? And so like I got what I wanted, man. I dreamt of these days and I got it. You know what I mean? So God gave me what I wanted. So how can I ever complain, man? God gave me everything I ever dreamed of. So, with everything in life, man, I just feel like everything that's happened to me is a part of who I am, man. It's a part of the journey and the story that I need to tell. And it's about me inspiring the next generation now because my time as a fighter is coming to an end. And so, the responsibility now on me is to inspire those who come after me. You know what I mean? Like be an example to those who need me now. You know what I mean? Like I Prince Asim said something to me a long time ago that I'll never forget. He said to me, because I was always appreciative. I was like, Nas, I can't thank you enough. He said, listen, one day a kid's gonna walk into your life and you're gonna do the same thing for him that I did for you. And you know what? I'm really proud, man, because there's so many kids that have walked into my life, and I'm just hoping because of that. Because I'm like, I owe it to Prince Nassim to do that
yeah.
because he did that for me. You know what I mean? Like that's my give back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a good value to have because it's like no matter how big you get or how successful you get, to be able to stay humble. And from the sounds of it, how you're explaining what your old man is like, I'm sure there's no way that he'd let you get a big head without sort of like bringing you back down to size.
Yeah. Look, the craziest thing, man, is that you know what? Even at the top of my game is whatever you want to say, fame or whatever it is, fortune, whatever. I never, ever, ever said no to anybody, man. I was always kind to people. I always gave people my time. I always gave people an opportunity to ask me a question. I never knocked anybody back. You know what I mean? If anybody ever wanted a photo, I always gave it to them. I never knocked anybody back, man. And I think that's why God's continued to give me success, man. I'm like, bro, in 1 year's time, and I ain't gonna be around for another year. I'm gonna put that out there. I ain't gonna be around for another year, but in 1 year's time, that'll be 20 years as a professional fighter. 20
That's a long
years, man.
time, bro. That's a long time for
And can I just say this to the listeners out there? And this is the craziest thing that people don't understand is that, you know what? I've been pro for 20 years now, nearly. But on top of that, my first world championship fight was in 2008, right?
yeah,
2008. But I was rated by about 2006, 2007. So you work that out, man. From 2007 to 2022, I've been in the world ratings for all of those years. Whether I've won or lost, I've always worked my way back in position to get another opportunity. And look, man, I lost to Tevin Farmer and decided to call it a day on the advice of some people who loved me. But then I realized that it wasn't for me to retire at that time. You know what I mean? It wasn't my time. So I came back. And after coming back from that time, now I am currently ranked number 7 in the world. So, like, regardless of what's happening in my life, I've always worked my way back into contention. Always. I've never
yeah.
given up, man. Um,
But to have
you know,
that as a consistency as well, to be able to be in the world rankings for 20 years and to be able to continually get back in there and work
Yeah.
your way back up there. That's a huge accomplishment because it's like I don't think people really understand how hard it is to be ranked, top 10, top 15, top 20, top 50 even in the world of boxing.
Yeah, man, it's difficult, bro. But let me tell you something, man. I've just had good people around me. I've had the blessings of God. I've had amazing advisors and friends who have always been there and supported me. But let me tell you, man, my biggest thing is that I'm a true believer in the things that I believe in. You know what I'm saying? And so, like I always said, everything in your life starts with a vision. Everything in your life starts with a vision. This podcast started with a vision. This is
100%.
your vision. This is your vision, man. And the only way that your vision comes to fruition is through consistency. You had to get your room together. You had to get the mic ready, the earphones. You had to get all these things that needed to be done to set up a podcast, right? And you did that. So you set up your podcast. You did exactly what you needed to do that. So everything in your life starts like this, man. It's vision, the consistency, and whether it's a consistency to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be a sportsman, to be a garbage cleaner, whatever it is you're doing in your life, you need to be consistent in your approach. And I can promise you at the end of that, through consistency, the only thing that follows is success, man. That's the only thing. So it's vision, consistency, success, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree, man, and hard work as well. It's
No
you
doubt.
know,
But that's
I
all. But
think
that's all the hard work and all that. That's part of the consistency, man. Because
yeah,
we know that to become a champion in the boxing ring, you got to be consistent in your training. You got to work hard. You got to be dedicated. You got to eat right. You got to sleep correctly. You got to get ample rest. So we know all that, man. So that's why that falls into the category of consistency. That's part of the consistency.
all part of that sort of genre,
Yes,
man.
sir. That's right, man. That's right.
So, man, one thing I wanted to ask you about was being under contract with 50 Cent. How did that come about?
Look, man, the relationship with 50 Cent started in 2006, and it's crazy because when I fought on the undercard of Oscar De La Hoya versus Floyd Mayweather, Floyd was like always around 50 Cent at that time, you know what I mean? And so like when we were at the weigh-in and everything like that, I remember trying to get a photo with 50 Cent and his bodyguards was like, nah, man, step away. You're with the opposite team. Hell no. You know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah,
man, I'm just trying to get a photo of 50. Just calm down, dude. It's all good. I don't even want the photo. Forget it. You know what I mean? And so
yeah.
the next day, I fought a guy by the name of Jose something, right? Like, and he was the former IBA champion, and he was a tough Mexican. You know what I mean? And so you know what? They have monitors set up in our change rooms, and like you can watch the fight on the monitor, right? And so I was fighting just before the telecast of HBO, and so they still had the fight up on the screen. Floyd Mayweather was watching the fight, supposedly, because once he got out of the ring after beating Oscar De La Hoya, I was standing outside of Oscar De La Hoya's change room, and here's Floyd and 50 Cent walking past me. And so, and so I swear to you, this is no word of a lie. On my mother's life, this is exactly what happens. Floyd Mayweather's got a film crew with him, and then he sees me. And he's like, "No, stop for a second, yo, kid." And I'm like, "Me?" And he's like, "Yeah, you." And he's like, "You're the future of boxing, man." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah, I seen you fight on tape, man. I seen you fight. I was watching it in the change room. I love your elusiveness and the way you move. You remind me a lot of Prince Hassim, man. You just need to do a few things, make a few tweaks. You're gonna be champion one day." And I'm like, "Really, Floyd?" And he's like, "Definitely, man." And he's like, "How long are you on contract for?" And I was like, "I got 2 years to go with Golden Boy." And he's like, "Make sure you call me when you're free, when you're a free agent." And I was
Wow.
like, "All right, cool, man." I didn't really buy into it. I was like, whatever, you know what I mean? But I was like, "Hey, 50, do you mind if I get a photo?" He's like, "Yeah, absolutely, man." And then I took a photo with him. And then my dad took a photo with him. And I seen the bodyguard and I was like, "Told you I was going to get that photo, man." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so, you
man.
know what? In 2012, no, sorry, 2011, I'm in the ring, right? Or 2012, I should say, I'm in the ring. Yeah, it's 2012, and I'm in a tough fight, man. I'm in a non I'm still champion of the world, but I'm fighting in a non-title fight. But my title is still on the line because if I lose, the governing body said that they'll strip me of the title. You know what I mean? So I'm fighting this Mexican, and the fight gets tough and it's getting down and dirty, right? And so then my brother comes up to the corner. He's like, "Listen, man, win this fight because I need to talk to you about this. There's something big on the line. You gotta win." And I'm like, "I'm gonna win, man. Don't worry about that." And so I shut this guy down. I won the fight. And then I get out of the ring and I'm telling my brother, I'm like, "Man, what do you got to talk about?" He's like, "Go on your holiday. And when you finish from your holiday, I'll call you and we'll talk about it." I'm like, "Just tell me, man." He's like, "No, no, go on your holiday first." So I was set to fly to Dubai the next day. I was meeting up with Prince Nassim in Dubai. So I'm in Dubai after spending 10 days with Nassim in Dubai. My brother Imad rings me. He's like, "Look, man, I need you to get on a plane and go to Vegas as soon as possible." And I was like, "Oh, shit, I'm not doing that, man. That's a terrible flight." And he's like, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I'll just come home, man, because I need to get a few things sorted out." So what's the issue? He goes, 50 Cent and Floyd Mayweather want to sign you up, man. And they need you on a plane ASAP. So the next morning, I was on a flight back to Australia. And then the next day, me and my brother got on a flight back to Vegas. So we fly into LA. Then we land in LA. Then we get to Vegas. And when we arrive into Vegas, Floyd Mayweather has been incarcerated for domestic violence.
Yeah.
For beating up, I think his girlfriend or something like that, right? And so
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather is no longer going to be at these meetings. So his 50 Cent has somebody, a driver, pick us up. And then the driver comes to the hotel and he's like, "Oh, 50 Cent's going to come pick you guys later up tonight." You know what I mean? So I obviously, I'm tired, but I'm like I'm on edge. You know what I mean? I can't wait to meet this
Yeah.
guy and I want to work out what's going on. These guys want to sign me up to TMT. You know what I mean? I'm going to be part of TMT. It's like going to be mind blowing. You know what I mean? And so then 50 Cent comes over, and the first thing I said to 50 when I seen him, I was like, "Hey, 50, do you remember me?" And he's like, "I sure do, man." And I was like, "Where from?" And he's like, "I remember you from the change rooms outside of when Floyd beat Oscar." And I was like, "Man, you got a good memory, bro." And I was like, "That's so cool." And he's like, "Come on, man, let's go." And we had a Rolls Royce, a Bentley, and a Lamborghini. So he was like jumping the Lamborghini with me. I was like, "No way, man." He's like, "Hell yeah." He's like, "One day you're gonna have one of these. It's gonna be your car one day." You know what I mean? I'm like, "Man, this is crazy." So here I am. I'm standing on. He's like, "Stand on the seats with your belt." You know what I mean? I'm like, "Come on, you sure 50?" He's like, "Yeah, get up, man." And so I got these mad photos with 50, and then we went out, spent the night out together, and whatever. We had a chat and this and that. Then the next day he says, "We'll talk business tomorrow." So the next day he comes over and he's like, "Listen, man, we want to sign you up on a 3-year deal." You know what I mean? And I was like, "Wow, man, this is like a dream come true." And he's like, "We're going to give you a bonus up front. And we're going to give you some things and whatever, whatever." And so, you know what? Like, he gave me $100,000 bonus. He gave me
Jeez.
some, he bought me a car. He like, they gave me a really nice contract, man. A really, really nice contract. I was like, I'm set for life, man. You know what I mean? I was like, this is going to be the changing point in my life and I'm going to be set forever. And it's crazy, man, because just as good as it was and as good as it and as quick as it happened, it fell apart just as quick. Because like the minute Floyd Mayweather got out of jail, I remember speaking to Floyd on the phone and he was like, "Look, man, just give me a few days to get myself situated and we're gonna get going." And I was like, "Floyd, I want to be multiple time world champion, man, and I need your help. I'm gonna be one of the greats to come out of Australian boxing." He's like, "And I'm gonna help you do it." And you know what? The biggest detriment in my life was Floyd Mayweather, man, because it's so crazy because signing the contract with Floyd Mayweather and 50 Cent became my biggest downfall because when 50 Cent and Floyd Mayweather fell out, I was stuck in the middle because of this stupid $100,000 bonus that I had and the car that I had taken. Because they always say, don't take gifts, man, because once you take a gift, you're locked in, you ain't getting out. You know what I mean? And so when Floyd Mayweather and 50 Cent started falling out, 50 was like, if you want to go with Floyd, you need to give me back my 100 grand in the car. And I'm like, "Man, look, there's a situation with the car is that when you buy a brand new car, you take it back to the dealership, it's not worth shit." You know what I mean? So I'm like, "I don't know how I'm going to pay you for the car. I don't really have that kind of money to pay for that car." And he's like, "Well, you need to speak to Floyd and get Floyd to cough out the money." You know what I mean? And him and Floyd started falling out. I was stuck in the middle of this terrible beef. And then you know what? In the end, I was pretty much forced to go with 50. You know what I mean? I had no choice. And 50 was like painting this amazing picture. He's like, "Listen, I want you to imagine this. I want you to imagine a concert, a music concert / boxing event. And I was like, yeah, he's like, I'm gonna come out to Australia and I'm gonna do events. I'm gonna do like I'm gonna do like a concert, and in the middle of the concert, I'm gonna like stop the concert and have a boxing fight, and you're gonna be that one fight that happens on the night. And he's like, we're gonna make a ton of money. So I was like, man, this guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about, you know what I mean? So like, let's just see how it goes. So then next thing you know, he sort of goes back on his word. He's not going to do these concerts, and now he's going to try to get me on TV shows and whatever. And so then he rings me up and he's like, "Listen, man, I got you, $250,000 to fight against Jason Velez on the undercard of Miguel Cotto versus Austin Trout in New York Madison Square Garden." I'm like, far out, man. That's going to be big. I'm like, I'm down for that. I'm down for that 50, you know. And as quick as I got on that show and started preparing, and I went into camp and everything like that, one day I wake up in the morning and there's like 1,000 tweets on my phone and messages and whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on, man? And like, I read the tweet, and the tweet said Billy Dib been taken off Showtime card. I'm like, what the fuck for? What have I done? Anyway, so then I ring 50 Cent. I'm like, man, what's going on, brother? And like, what's the situation? He's like, look, man, I got some bad news for you, man. Floyd Mayweather's, spoken to Showtime, man. They've taken you off the card, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, man. So Floyd Mayweather basically had me blacklisted from Showtime. You know
Just
what I mean?
because you're one of 50's boys.
Yeah, because him and 50 were going back and forth, and they were like bickering at each other and whatever. And then, 50 was like, look, I got my kid on Showtime and this and that and the other. And what are you going to do about it, Floyd? And Floyd was like, well, let me show you what I can do about it. So he rang up Showtime and got me off the card. You know what I mean? Stephen Espinoza came out and said, oh, look, we're tied in with Floyd Mayweather and we got to do the right thing by the company, whatever. Anyway, it's long story short, man. Floyd Mayweather basically dicked me, you know what I mean? And like, after that, everything was just so like volatile, man. Everything was ugly, volatile. It's like at the time, ESPN was cool, but it wasn't really that big, you know what I mean? And they weren't paying the kind of money that I was contracted to get. And I was supposed to fight Jason Velez. Then the Velez fight fell out, and then now I got to fight my mandatory. My mandatory is a guy called Luis Franco, and Luis Franco had just been in a guy called Mauricio Munoz. And so we go to the purse bid to fight Luis Franco, and Franco's people don't turn up to the purse bid. So 50 Cent puts in a fucking ridiculous bid of 50 grand. We win the purse bid, which means, I'm still going to get what's mine because that's what I'm contracted to get. I'm contracted to get, which was $250,000. But this guy, Franco, who's just the opponent, he's now only going to earn $15,000. And he's like fuming. How the hell is he going to go into a world title fight earning 15 grand? And so he pulls out of the fight, you know what I mean? So then they offer the fight to Mauricio Munoz, who says, yes, he'll take the fight. So now I've gone from preparing for Luis Franco, who I was preparing for like 3 weeks. Then he's out. Then they bring in Mauricio Munoz, and he starts training. So I'm training for him, and I've been training for him for about 4 weeks. And then like with 2 weeks notice, he pulls out. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like these bills are piling up. I'm like, I'm getting bill after bill, and like, I got to pay my house off and all these things. And I'm like, money's like, I'm starting to become like desperate for money. You know what I mean? Like bills are piling up and I'm not fighting. This is the longest that I've been out of the ring my whole career. Right. And so with like, they changed the date of the fight. Then it's like 3 weeks now. And so then like bringing a kid by the name of Evgeny Gradovich, who I had no idea who he was. And his record was 16-0. And I was like, fuck it, man. I don't want to know about him. I don't care about him. I'll fight him. Doesn't matter. And everyone's like, you sure? And I'm like, just do whatever, man. I was so angry by what was happening. Floyd Mayweather, 50 Cent, all these people I just felt like everything was so toxic around me. You know what I mean? And then I get in the ring with this Gradovich, and you know what I mean? It was like, I'm beating him on his shutout. 5 rounds into the fight, it's 5-0. I won every round. 5 rounds on every judge's card. I've won the first 5 rounds. How he comes back and wins a decision, I have no idea. All I remember is like in round 6, or round 5, he throws a punch, and then as he's coming back, bang, he elbows me in the back of the head. My head's like pissing out blood profusely, you know what I mean? It's like it becomes a bloodbath, you know what I mean? It's a back and forth battle. And in the end, the judges score at 115, 113 to me. and then 114, 113, 114, 113, and the new IBF champion of the world is Evgeny Gradovic. And the son of a bitch referee, I think in round 9, he deducted 1 point off me for supposedly holding. And I wasn't even holding, man. This guy Gradovic had me in like a hold, and I was punching him trying to get out of it. But like, anyway, the ref deducted a point, man. I ended up losing my championship of the world, and it was probably the most devastating day of my life, man. Besides, obviously the death of my wife at the time, you know what I mean? But it was like I was devastated, you know what I mean? And like I was so hurt because I thought, like, man, all this hard work that I had done, all these years of building up, and I finally get to the point where I'd start to, I deserve to get what I'm gonna get. And you know what? The craziest thing is, man, is that I was told if I won that fight, my next fight would be against Nonito Donaire for $750,000. 750,000 US, man, and I blew it, bro. I blew it. But
what do you think the downfall of that fight was? Do you think because like there was some
mentally,
political thing going
yeah,
on, or there was it you that wasn't ready? Like, where do you think it was
no,
that?
I was ready, but I was mentally checked out. And you know what? The truth is, man, I never said this, but I've written it in my autobiography. You're the first person to hear this, man. So I'm telling it to you now before I even put it in my book. My book's going to be coming out in the next like 5 months. 10 days out from the fight with Gradovic, I was so sick, man. So sick that I flew out to America with 7 days notice, by the way. Right?
Jeez.
On the 10 days out, my doctor said to me, he goes, listen, you have the worst throat infection and you'd be crazy to get into the ring. You're not going to be right. Believe me when I tell you. But can I just say, the worst thing that was happening to me at that point was that I needed money. Money was my biggest detriment at that point. You know what I mean? And like, I was like, man, my bills are stacking up. I got to fight. My auntie at the time came over my house and I had this thing in the back of my throat. And she said to me, listen, I can help you, but this is going to hurt. And I'm like, she goes, I can get the infection out. And I'm like, how? She goes, it's going to hurt, but I can do it for you. And I'm like, what is it? So you know what she did? She got a piece of gauze. Like gauze, they wrap your hands with gauze.
Yeah,
She got a piece of gauze. She wrapped it around her finger and she dipped it in salt and lemon, but put a lot of salt on it. And then she put her finger in the back of my throat and scraped the back of my throat where the infection is. And I just vomited this whole infection out, bro. It was disgusting, man. It was nasty as. It was all yellow and grime and everything, man. And so, you know what? As soon as she did that, I felt like literally by the nighttime, I felt like 100%, like I was 100% better. I rang Billy Hussein. I was like, look, man, let's train tomorrow. And he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, man, I'm all right. Let's train tomorrow. So then we trained the following day. And the next day we got on a plane. So that was 11 days out. So we did that night. I went to sleep. The following day I trained again. 7 days out from the fight, we flew to America. We arrived there 8 days out from the fight because you gain 1 day when you arrive there.
yeah.
And so, you know what, man, it was just like, I don't know. I felt like I knew I was not well. I was sick, but I was like, I got to do it. And I was like, man, I got to be like, I can't be losing to a kid who's 16 and 0. You know what I mean? Like, I'm on a different level to this kid. You know what I mean? And just so happened to be, man, the fight it got down and dirty, man. And you know what? Even at the end of it, Lou DiBella got in the ring. 50 Cent got in the ring. Sean Gibbons got in the ring. They're all like, you've won the fight. You've won the fight. And then when the split decision went against, I was like, I can't believe it. I just burst into tears, man. I was bursting into tears, bro. And then, yeah, man, that's the journey of my life, bro. And I just, ever since that point, you know, I mean, I sort of been on the comeback trail, you know what I mean? Like just trying to get it back, you know. And obviously I fought Gradovic in a rematch. That I came unstuck in the rematch. Then I moved up a division to super featherweight. I got a shot against Takashi Miura. I was winning the first 2 rounds on the shutout on every judge's card, and then just in round 3, I got a little bit reckless. He caught me with a shot, man, dropped me, and I got back up, and I wasn't in any condition to continue, man. So the referee stopped the fight. Again, I went on the rebuild. I rebuilt back to the point where I got back to the number 1 position, and I ended up facing Tevin Farmer for the IBF super featherweight world title. Lost the decision there. You know what I mean? But I mean, winning's a beautiful thing, man. And sometimes people say winning's everything, but you know what? After everything that I had been through to get back to the point where I was fighting Tevin Farmer for the IBF world title was an achievement in itself, man, because after everything that I had been through to that point, like, so in 2015, you could say it's probably one of the most devastating years of my life, man, because, I lost that fight to Takashi Miura. You know, months later, my wife passed away. You know what I mean? Like, things were just not good. You know what I mean? 50 Cent basically liquidated the company and robbed me for $1.1 million. So,
Gee.
like, it was a big hit, man. Bang, bang, bang. You know what I mean? Like, I got hit after hit after hit. You know what I mean? So, once I rebuilt myself and got walked into that opportunity with Tevin Farmer, even though I knew it was going to be like a really, really hard task, you know what I mean? I was like, not the same fighter that I was when I was a kid. If I was the kid that beat, the kid that beat uh, Lasieva would have killed Tevin Farmer. You know what I mean? But I just wasn't that fighter anymore. You know what I mean? Like, father time was slowly starting to catch up. I was facing this young kid who was super elusive, super fast, and super determined to be a champion. You know what I mean? So, like, the victory in that was that after my wife passed away, I had worked my way back into contention. That was the
After,
victory.
after your wife passed away, was there ever any moment of giving away the game and you being like, I'm
Yeah,
done?
yeah,
Like,
definitely, definitely, man. After when as soon as she got sick, after I lost to Takashi Miura, man, I was pretty much like, this is it for me. You know what I mean? And then when she got sick, I was like, I'm just gonna look after her and stuff. And then when she was in the hospital, man, when she passed away, it's like, you know, I was devastated, man. Obviously, as you would be, like, I was
yeah.
really hurt and just trying to find ways to deal with it. And you know, she sent me a text message before she passed away, man, and it was probably one of the most beautiful messages that I've ever received in my whole life, man, from anybody. And it was basically this message about just telling me about how great I am and how much she's enjoyed her time with me. And you know, when she sent me the message, she was alive, but I never looked at it as a goodbye message. But after she passed away, I could see the messages of goodbye in it.
Yeah.
Like, there was messages that things that she was saying, like, regardless of whatever happens in your life, I want you to remember that just I want you to do whatever makes you happy. Don't do what makes people happy, mate. Do what makes you happy. And when I read that back after she passed away, which was like maybe a month later, I was like, man, she's telling me to go back to boxing. That's what she's telling me. So I'm gonna do that. So I rang Billy Hussein and I was like, Billy, look, man, I need help. I'm in a really dark place and I would really like to come back to the gym. He's like, are you sure? And I'm like, I'm sure, man. And you know what? I went back to the gym, man, and it was like I was starting from scratch. It was like I had forgotten everything about boxing. It was like my life had become reset and I was trying to learn who I was again. You know what I mean? Because it was just, there was times in the gym where I cried, man. I would burst into tears, after sparring sessions and stuff, because I just felt like it wasn't me there. You know what I mean? I wasn't me. Where is this person that was there? Like, I'd go back and watch old footage of myself and be like, where is this person, man? But then, you know, as I started to get older and wiser, I started to understand that, father time slowly does catch up with you, man. And,
Yeah.
as good as you are when you're 20, it ain't going to be the same when you're 30, and it ain't going to be the same when you're 35. You know what I mean? It's like, I learned to make, I learned to adapt to the year of that. You know what I mean? Like, every year that I get older, like, I got to make more sacrifices. I need to make more time for stretching. I need to make more time for nutrition. I need to get on point with all that stuff, because it's my the technique that I have is what's going to get me through, but it's going to be the small things that I do that are going to keep me at the top. And that's how I've remained at the top. And like, I'm openly gonna say this, man. Like, I think my next fight will probably be the last fight of my boxing career. And my last fight looks set to be February 10 next year against Luke Jackson. So, I'm looking to close it out with a bang, and you know, I definitely will look to play that song "I Did It My Way" because, I like, after everything that I've been through in my career, I definitely did it my way.
Yeah, man. 100%. And, you know, with, boxing and, your career wrapping it up, you know, in your next fight, how often did you find, like, when you were in the peak of your career, how often would you think is like the most ideal time to fight? Like every 3 months, every 6 months, 12 months? Like, how
Man,
consistent did you
I love
find?
being, I was man, there was times when I was really active. Like, if you look at my box rec, there was times that I was fighting maybe 2 times a month. I loved fighting, man. I loved it. You know what I mean? For me, to be honest with you, man, ideally I would have been loved to fight every 3 months. But unfortunately, the cookie crumbled the way it did, man, and that didn't happen. You know what I mean? We can wish for things, but I wasn't a big enough star to have what I want. You know what I mean? Like I was still sometimes fighting on people's undercards and stuff. So you can only appear on the shows that are available. You know what I mean? And so, you know, like I said, man, I'm grateful, brother. It's been a good journey. It's been I've had the good, the bad, and the ugly all happened to me. You know what I mean? And so it's all good though. I'm really happy with where I am, man, and I've got some really exciting things happening in my life right now. Like my autobiography is gonna come out really soon, man, and I'm expecting it to be a massive hit, man, because it's like basically telling the whole story of my life, man. And the way that the book's been written, man, it's been written really special, and it's like a bit of a tribute to my wife who passed away. And then you know what, man, like when I say life is good, man, I really mean that because God's blessed me with the most beautiful wife today. I'm married. I've got the most amazing son. Like I just couldn't be happier. You know what I mean? I'm just like God's given me everything and more. You know what I mean? And I don't like sometimes I think I don't even deserve what I have. You know what I mean? Like I'm just grateful because I know there's people out there that are starving, man. So I'm just grateful.
Yeah, man, 100%. But on that note, I think it is time for guess 60 seconds with Piers. We're going to get this started. How it works is I'm going to ask Billy a bunch of questions. He's got 60 seconds to answer as many as he can. Billy, are you ready to get this game started?
Let's go, man.
All right. First one up, Snapchat or TikTok?
TikTok.
Favorite holiday destination?
America.
Favorite Australian place to visit? Favorite place in Australia to visit?
Oh man, the beach. I just love going to the beach, bro. Any beach is a good beach.
If you had to describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
Charismatic, funny, and loving.
What is the last book you read?
The last book I read was Malcolm X.
If you could win an Olympic gold medal in any sport besides boxing, what would it be?
The NBA.
You're auditioning for Australian Idol. What song do you sing?
The World's Greatest by R. Kelly.
The last TV show or movie you recorded or downloaded?
The last TV show that I watched was is an Arabic TV show called Lal Maut, which means till death.
What is your favorite song to sing at karaoke?
The World's Greatest.
One has to go. Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, or Harry Potter?
Game of Thrones.
And last one, in 5 minutes' time, you're being shipped to outer space. What 2 personal belongings do you take with you, excluding human beings?
Oh shit, man! I'm taking my phone because I can look through all the nice photos and that I have of my family, and some boxing gloves.
That's it, man. But that has been 60 seconds with Piers. Billy, thank you so much for coming on. Like this episode has really just sort of flown by. I feel like we just started like 10 minutes ago and we'll be going for an hour and 20.
Yeah, I think cool, man.
I definitely would love to get you back on for a part 2, man, if we can.
No doubt, man. I'm definitely keen to come back on for part 2, man. And I hope the listeners, enjoyed our podcast, man. And I look forward to the feedback, man. I can't wait.
Absolutely, man. Where can people find you on social media, Billy?
So on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, man, I'm just simply at Billy Dib.
There you go. Nice and easy. Make sure you go and follow Billy Dib. Keep an eye out for his autobiography coming out very, very soon. Support him. Go buy a copy. Hey, if I get a copy, do I get an autograph on it as well? Like, what's
no doubt, Piers. No doubt, man.
That's
no
it.
Doubt.
Well, Billy, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Appreciate you all for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Peace.
God bless.